Well, after all that mess, it looks like Novak Djokovic won't be playing the 2022 Australian Open after all. Breaking news, Novak Djokovic has officially been denied entry into Australia after hours of interrogation by Aussie immigration forces. The Australian border force said Djokovic failed to provide appropriate evidence to meet the entry requirements into the country, subsequently cancelling his visa. According to The Age and Sydney Morning Herald, Novak's lawyers are in the process of appealing the decision. Novak will stay in Melbourne for a short period of time and will be transported to a city quarantine hotel. There are arrangements being put in place to get him a flight back home to Europe. I was actually in the process of editing a separate video talking about Djokovic being held by border control and other information surrounding the exemption, but I'll just be doing cut-ins of that earlier footage and me now that I found out that Novak is banned from entering the country. Yesterday, the world number one sent everyone into a frenzy after announcing that he'd be traveling to Australia for the Australian Open, being granted a medical exemption. Things clearly haven't been smooth sailing for the Serb since, as he's reportedly stuck at Melbourne Tullamarine Airport and can't be let into the country due to a visa mistake. The Times of London reports that Djokovic was stopped at border control because his team requested a visa that doesn't apply to someone that was given a medical exemption from COVID-19 vaccinations. The Australian border force apparently spotted the error while Djokovic was on his 14-hour flight from Dubai to Melbourne. Victorian Sports Minister Jala Pulford came out and tweeted that the border force asked if the Victorian government supported Novak's visa application to enter the country. She revealed that the Victorian government wouldn't be providing Djokovic individual visa support to compete in Melbourne. However, the border force has the final say, not the government, as they can still let Novak into Australia regardless of whether the government approves. One can be granted a medical exemption if they suffer from an acute condition or if they've been diagnosed with COVID within the past 6 months. A border force source apparently suspects that Djokovic is using the COVID infection bit as his grounds for exemption. However, this might not fly under their border laws. According to Serbian media outlets, the 20-time major champ has been interrogated by immigration for several hours, being held in a room guarded by 2 police officers. The Serbian reportedly doesn't have access to his phone and can't speak with anyone from his team. As of 2:10 Eastern Time, Novak is still being held in the airport, extending his stay there beyond 6 hours. His father, Cernan, is currently threatening to throw hands. He also confirmed that his son was separated from his team, including coach Goran Ivanisevic, who posted an update of the ordeal on his IG page. As Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison said, if the evidence Djokovic provides isn't good enough, he could be sent back home. For now, all we can do is just wait and see if he'll be allowed into the country. So that's basically the breakdown of the border situation, and we now of course know that he has not been allowed entry. I just honestly have nothing left to say except for this is a total mess and we aren't even close to seeing the end of it. I know the No Fam is going to go crazy, and there's even reports of the Serbian president going off and saying that this fight isn't over or whatever else. I do want to say that I am kind of disappointed that Novak won't be coming to play the Australian Open because he is the world's top player. Plus, I kind of wanted to see how the crowd would react to him stepping out on court. That would be a whole lot of mess in itself. But honestly, he did this to himself, I have to say. If he had just gotten the shot, none of this would have happened. The medical exemption itself reeks of shadiness and BS, and I'm really starting to doubt if other players actually got approved for the medical exemption. Apparently, there are 3 players already in Australia on the same medical exemption given to Djokovic. A source close to Tennis Australia told The Age, "This looks to us like the feds are responding to the media by letting some players in, but not the world number one." Now, Tennis Australia might have a point in basically implying that the federal authorities only denied Novak because of the backlash received, but then again, they could just be lying about them even permitting other players on the exemption basis in the first place. We all suspected Djokovic's grounds for exemption was BS either way though, and border control probably felt the same way, which is why they interrogated him for so long and ultimately denied his visa request. I feel like Novak publicly announcing that he came on the exemption was a possible strategy by him and Tennis Australia kind of ambushing the border force into allowing him entry, if that makes sense. But I feel like it backfired because they didn't expect the public to be this up in arms of him coming to play. I still feel like a lot of this mess could have been avoided if Novak had just stayed quiet though. I talked about this within my previous footage, so stay tuned for both my thoughts and more key info about the exemption. We do have more context about the exemption process itself. Tennis Australia CEO Craig Tiley sat down with the Today Show in Australia and revealed that the exemption process is actually completely anonymous through two separate panels. Plus, medical experts didn't even see Novak's name, apparently, when looking at his application. Tiley also said that 26 athletes and support personnel applied for medical exemptions, with a handful being accepted. He didn't reveal who the athletes were, nor did he give a specific number of players or support staff that got the exemption. As far as the whole exemption drama goes, if I were Tiley and Tennis Australia, I'd be annoyed at Novak because he really didn't have to say that he got the exemption. He could have just said, I'm on my way to Melbourne, and there wouldn't have been this much outrage. He could have taken the same approach as the other handful of players that supposedly got the exemption and just not said anything at all. Now, the people, Australians especially, are mad at both Novak and the tournament organizers, so both are down bad either way. The Victorian government sensed the public's anger towards the situation because they've been subjected to really strict lockdowns and stay-at-home orders throughout the entire pandemic. Also, there's been a heavy push in Australia for vaccinations, as many Victorians have been let go from their jobs for not getting the shot. This is why there are claims of favoritism concerning Novak, because they feel like they weren't granted the same travel exemptions or leeway as Djokovic was. I do have to say, much of this mess falls on the Victorian government for even allowing this exemption process and setting up the guidelines, because being real, there was no big obstacle stopping Novak from getting the vaccine. The man said 2 years ago that he was opposed to vaccines. The system should have been more matter of fact in my opinion and said, okay, if you're against vaccines, morally that's fine, but you're not coming in our country. End of discussion. Once again, there could have been some serious health condition that Novak can use as an excuse, but I doubt it. The COVID infection pass is pretty wishy-washy too and really shouldn't be 6 months. Sabalenka got the vaccine after she got COVID, and that was in October. But basically, bottom line, this is on the Victorian government, Tennis Australia, and ultimately the border force if they let Novak into Australia. An actually solid exemption process would have permitted junior player Amanda Hia, who couldn't even get the vaccine in his country. It also would have allowed an actually vaccinated competitor like Natalia Viglantseva, who was jabbed with a non-Australian verified vaccine. That's all for this video, and let me know your thoughts of Djokovic being banned from entering the country and this entire mess. Make sure y'all subscribe and click the notification bell so you're notified whenever I post updates, even more updates on the Novak situation. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you probably soon here on Grand Slam Tennis News Today.